Okay, going back to the functions of the acid in the stomach, we have the activates enzymes such as pepsin, breaks up food, help us with digestion. It helps us or converts ferric ions into ferrous ions in order to be able to absorb it at the level of the intestines and destroys any microorganism that may fall in the stomach. So pepsin is the byproduct of the digestion of pepsinogen. Chief cells are going to produce pepsinogen, and the acid will activate the pepsinogen into pepsin. Pepsin is going to help us digest proteins. Scroll down. Gastric lipase. Chief cells also produce gastric lipase that are going to help us start the digestion of dietary fat. Intrinsic factor, parietal cells produce intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor is very important because it's going to help us absorb vitamin B12 at the level of the small intestine. If we don't have B12, then we're going to end up with anemia. So it's very important for you to remember that vitamin B12 is necessary in order to avoid anemia, because vitamin B12 is necessary in order to produce hemoglobin. Chemical messengers. There are some other chemical messengers in the stomach. Some of them are going to be the vasoactive intestinal peptide, VIP, okay, secretin, GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide. Gastric motility. When you swallow the food, it stimulates mechanoreceptors that you have in the pharynx, and this stimulates your brain, specifically your brain stem. And then your brain stem will prepare your stomach to receive the food. Once the food reaches in your stomach, the stomach is going to start moving, turning and churning, trying to mix the food with the acid. And also by performing this type of movements, they are going to start breaking down the food as well. So not only is chemical digestion by the acid, but also mechanical digestion by the movements that it's going to perform. After this, the food is being mixed with the acid, little amounts of this food, now it's called chyme, is going to be transported, or it's going to be ejected towards your intestine by opening and closing the pyloric sphincter. Only little amounts of food goes into the duodenum, so the duodenum in your small intestine is able to neutralize the acidity that the food is going to have with the acid, and then allow the food to be digested by the pancreatic enzymes. So in this process of pumping the food from the stomach to the small intestine, it takes approximately 4 hours. So in here you have a nice summary of the functions of each one of these cells. Very important, parietal cells produce hydrochloric acid intrinsic factor. This acid is neutralized by the mucus produced by the mucus cells. We also talk about these other cells right here. Chief cells, they produce pepsinogen that is going to be converted into pepsin, and gastric lipase that is going to help us digest fat. Gastric stimulates the secretion of the acid and also stimulates the movement of the small intestine. Serotonin stimulates gastric motility. So you should know these hormones as well as these chemicals, as well as the function that they have. Somatostatin is very important because this inhibits the gastric secretion and motility. Okay, so then the food is not going to the small intestine very frequently. Vomiting is a reaction towards toxins or infections that we have, in which due to this type of stimulus, again, maybe toxins or chemicals, they're going to open the cardiac sphincter, they're going to relax the esophagus, and increase pressure in your abdominal area is going to eject the contents towards the outside. That's all you need to know about it. Digestion and absorption. Digestion basically starts in the mouth with the salivary amylase, but it doesn't stop there, because after that it goes into your stomach, where you continue the digestion of all these nutrients. After that, it will go into your small intestine, where the final digestion is going to happen. After the final digestion happens in the intestines, you will absorb the nutrients at the level of the intestines. Protection of the stomach. As I mentioned before, the stomach is protected because we produce mucus. Also, we have tight junctions in between the cells of your stomach, not allowing this acidity to go across, therefore damaging the tissues that we have under that. The last one, the cells, the epithelial cells that you have in your stomach are constantly replaced, and that happens every 3 to 5 days. So this exchange help us maintain the stomach in good order. Regulation of gastric function, again, is controlled basically by the nerves and the brain. And there are three main steps in digestion. One of them is the cephalic phase, the other one is the gastric phase, and the other one is the intestinal phase. Cephalic phase, you don't put the food in your mouth, but for example, if you are hungry right now and we start talking about a barbecue, and I'm going to put a barbecue outside this door, and I'm going to start, putting in there some meat and some shrimp, etc., etc. You're gonna hear the sounds that they're going to produce once they are being cooked. You're going to smell that, and you're going to start salivating. As a matter of fact, right now I'm talking to you about it, and probably some of you that are hungry are going to start salivating. So there's no food in your mouth, but your brain starts producing all these different type of changes necessary in your digestive system in order to receive the food. Next one, gastric phase. Once it goes into your stomach, the food is mixed with acid, and the first part of the main digestion starts happening. After that, it goes into your intestines, where at the end, all this type of food that we're going to ingest is going to be digested at the end at the level of your intestines by the pancreatic enzymes. We keep scrolling down. We have gastric phase. We already talked about it. Intestinal phase, we also mentioned that. And that will be the last one. So here they're talking about ulcers. I'm not going to talk about much about it since that's not part of anatomy, but right here you see normal tissue, and right here you see an ulcer. These black areas that you see right here, that's actually blood that is being coagulated. The next topic is liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. So we scroll down, we have the liver. That's the first part, is found in the right hypochondriac area. Anatomy, it has 4 lobes, right? Left, right, caudate, and quadrate. Right here you have caudate, quadrate, right and left. Okay, here's the gallbladder. Here you have the inferior vena cava. Okay, a very important ligament that is going to keep the liver in place is the falciform ligament. Main job of the liver related to the digestive system is the production of bile. Again, in here we have gross anatomy. We already talked about the different type of lobules, the lobes that we have, the ligament as well, and we have now microscopic anatomy. If we cut the liver and we put in a slide of the liver in the microscope, you're going to see this figure. See, it goes like this, like this, like this, like this. This is actually a hexagon, but you're seeing only part of it. Very important for you to identify is that you're going to have a blood vessel in the middle of the hexagon, and 2 blood vessels and a tube in the borders of the hexagon. Let's take a look at this with a little bit more detail in this drawing that we have. So I was telling you, this is a hexagon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a hepatic lobule. Important, you have a vein in the middle, central vein, and in the corners, as you can see here, you're going to have a hepatic triad. Why is it called a hepatic triad? Because this is the liver, hepatic triad, because you have 3 tubes. This one is going to be the vein, this one is going to be the artery, this one is going to be the bile duct. Okay, this vein right here is the branch of the hepatic portal vein. This artery right here is the branch of the hepatic artery. And this bile ductile right here is the one that is going to collect the bile. A couple of things that you need to understand. Look at this red, how it gets together with the blue. And take a look at the blue right here, branch of hepatic portal vein, how it goes in here. At the end, everything, see, even they connect right here into these tubules, these ones right here. And then the vein, you see, goes in here. But at the end, everything that you're going to have this mixed blood in here with a lot of oxygen, without oxygen, as you can see, because this is red and blue, they are all going to end right here in the central vein. The central vein eventually will turn into the inferior vena cava. So all this blood that you have right here gets mixed, and every single cell, hepatocyte, is going to process this blood. I mean, it's going to detoxify it, it's going to produce bile, etc., etc. At the end, after it gets processed by these hepatocytes, it's going to end up in the central vein. And from the central vein, the blood will go back into, it will go back to the heart using the inferior vena cava. So very important, hepatic triad, hepatic lobule, hepatocyte, each one of these little cells. In the middle, you have the central vein. In addition to that, you also have Kupffer cells, which are the cells that are going to digest debris and microorganisms. So the Kupffer cell is part of your lymphatic system or your immune system. So let's keep scrolling down. So in here, you have what I already explained. You bile canalicular, Kupffer cells. That's what you have to know. Very important concept right here regarding anatomy. So here's the liver, and here's the gallbladder. The gallbladder is where you store the bile. Okay. Look at the tube from the bile. I mean, from that we use for bile. And this one right here is the pancreas. The pancreas have different areas. This one is going to be the pancreatic tail, the pancreatic body, the pancreatic head. This is your small intestine. The first part of the small intestine is the duodenum. So this one right here is the duodenum. You have to remember these anatomical structures and the position that they have. The pancreas has this main pancreatic duct as well as this accessory duct right here. The reason why you need to pay attention to this is because this bile duct gets together with the main pancreatic duct right here. And instead of having one individual hole for the bile duct and one for the pancreatic duct, both of them get together and we get only one hole. This part right here is called the hepatopancreatic sphincter is this one, and this is the ampulla. Okay, hepatopancreatic ampulla, very important. Sometimes stones that you get here in the gallbladder go here and get stuck in here, so they are going to cause problems not only in the liver as well as, but also in the pancreas. Now, where the bile as well as the pancreatic juices coming from the pancreas are going to end right here in the duodenum, the first part of your intestines. The connection right here that you have is connected to the stomach. So when the food comes from your stomach, they go right here. Right here is where the food gets finally digested completely before it gets absorbed around here. Okay, very important. So let's keep going down. We said circulation in the liver. We already talked about it. We said that we have the blood coming from the hepatic portal vein and from the gastric artery, that they're going to be the ones that are going to form the hepatic triad together with the bile canaliculi. And then after that, they are going to get together the artery in the vein, in this case, in order to form in the central vein. And the central vein eventually will turn into the inferior vena cava. We already talked about that. Gallbladder and bile. The gallbladder stores the bile, and the bile is produced by the liver. Bile is mainly fats such as cholesterol, phospholipids, as well as bile pigments. The main bile pigment is bilirubin, and that's the one that comes from the metabolism of hemoglobin. I think we talked about that already in the blood chapter. So that's one very important concept. Another one is that the bile is going to help us digest fat. Therefore, every single time we are digesting food, the presence of fat will stimulate the release of bile, and the bile is going to help us digest fat. Out of the bile that gets released, approximately 80% of it gets reabsorbed in order to be reprocessed into bile again. So that's something that you need to remember. The 20% remaining is eliminated in feces, and this is the only way in which we are able to eliminate cholesterol from our body, that 20% of bile that gets eliminated together with the feces. So you have to remember that. The next topic, pancreas.